I've chosen to review James Paul Guy's Big Thinker on Edutopia. I think to start, the quote really resonated with me about the main point that he tried to make is that opportunity to learn is not the book, it's whether you can bring the experience to the book. With that being said, um, James Paul Guy started off his journey to video games by watching his children play and then began playing games like World of Warcraft for himself. And he found that the immersion into these video games offered many opportunities for children that aren't offered through just giving them a book to read. He found that video games offer context for learning and enhance comprehension. He gives an example of students playing a game that included elements of physics, and with that, they were able to immerse themselves in intense academic vocabulary, which they could have read the word somewhere else and looked up a definition, but the actual meaning was so much more to them through gameplay. He found that without context, students struggle with comprehension, that it's not enough to give them a book to read, even if they're enjoying a book. But to truly comprehend something means that they need to immerse themselves in a world that can aid in comprehension. And he also found, like I said before, that building academic vocabulary happens in a game without even really trying, but it's up to a teacher to really think about the games that could be played to help students build that vocabulary and background to help them further on. Thinking about teaching implications, it's really important to think about gameplay, and not just any game, but what games could really help with students learning. Think about what curriculum you're teaching and games that could aid in building background knowledge to help. It's creating a learning environment to build the background knowledge. If you don't have gameplay at your fingertips for all of your students, I think that you can still create a learning environment to build background knowledge, create a whole classroom immersed in something that will help in comprehending, any subject, whether it be your students reading a book or better understanding science skills. You could create that environment that enhances those science skills, that makes it more meaningful for the student. Bring it as much to them as you can. He really hits home that you can give the manual about teaching, but it's really not the manual, it's how it's done. You can give your students a worksheet, that's your manual. But are they really going to retain and better understand their knowledge? Probably not. How can you immerse them into something to help them gain those skills and strategies and knowledge that they'll need to succeed? I only see positive learning implications for students who are able to immerse themselves into these, almost virtual worlds, whether it be through gameplay or a world created inside a classroom. He mentioned academic vocabulary building, increased comprehension, especially through gameplay, the problem-solving skills. These students aren't reading manuals to figure out how to play these games. They're playing them to figure out how to play the games. Those hands-on experiences are life skills that's really going to help build digital literacy skills. These students go on and they play things on their own all the time. They're not reading a manual to figure this out. They're building these skills through being able to play. So giving them opportunities and linking that to what you want your students to know is really going to help them build those skills to become part of a 21st century learner. So Guy really does want computers used instructionally, but it's not necessarily for an edutainment game. Find your letter, click the letter A. That just is reinforcing a skill that students already know, but allowing them in a virtual world of gameplay to build those skills. It's not just to play a game to play a game. It's consciously picking what your students need to help them succeed. Giving dedicated time spent to playing games. If you don't have time in your regular schedule, it could be a morning thing. If you want your students all playing a game each day during the week, morning time could be spent dedicated to gameplay, outside of the instructional time, because it's sad to say that many administrations probably wouldn't understand the background. They'd probably need to read a book or watch his video to understand that dedicating time spent to playing these games into virtual worlds would really be beneficial to students. Computers also can provide additional resources to immerse themselves in activities. A lot of the games that he referenced were software games, which may be hard. I know with my own school, we can't download our own games. So finding online resources that still allow for the virtual worlds, or, however it's best to bring real life experiences to your students through gameplay. Even if it is a fictional world, they're still faced with real life problems that they're going to have to figure out, in the virtual world that could be transferred into the real life setting. In conclusion, I think that Guy offers great insight to, video games are not something that should be frowned upon when used in the correct setting and intentionality. They can be used to enhance students' academics. In addition, if you don't think that video game play is attainable for your classroom, then it's up to you to create that game within your classroom. Make it a tangible thing, maybe not necessarily on a computer, but you could make your learning environment into the virtual world that your students need to succeed, to help them in comprehending the skills that you're teaching.